Gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be co-hosting this prestigious event along with Jaya Chawla. I'm Hashmita Mundra and I'm proud to be a Nalsarite. As managers, we understand the change is permanent. Modern times have brought in technology-enabled solutions that render efficient, timely, and varied choices. Along with its ease, technology also brings challenges that we as managers must be aware and ready to handle as we move on into corporate world. I vividly recall an incident that I wish to share with you all. My teachers, upon finding the right answer on my notebook, used to tell how intelligent I am. Equations, algebra, and other computations were interesting. My intelligence is today challenged with a notebook which does not require a pen, which solves lengthy equations in seconds. I solve these problems and produce results, but wonder, who is more intelligent? Is it me or the notebook? In fact, I've realized my teachers prefer that notebook alongside me. I have many questions, and I'm sure you do too. Welcome to Avabodha 2017, where we will ask questions and pursue answers to those questions. In our pursuit, I'm delighted to present to all of you Professor Faizan Mustafa, the Vice Chancellor of Nalsar University of Law, who has been a champion of academic innovation, fostering inquisitive minds like us.
Good morning. I'm sorry for this delay of some 15 minutes, but it's a holiday and then there is a huge procession going on in the city on the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. So that's why this little delay in the start of this program. So this is our third HR Enclave at Nalsar, which has been appropriately titled as Avabodhya, which means perceptions, knowledge, and wisdom. Through Avabodhya, we seek to understand the current role and scope of human resources, especially in the highly volatile work environment. This reminds me of the recently held GES at Hyderabad. Apart from Ms. Ivanka Trump and Modi ji, the other star attraction was Mitra, the robot that greeted both of them. What happened to our Indianness and our tehzeeb? Is it now codified? Can it ever be codified? Will we soon be replaced by intelligence that is no more organic? Will machines be able to think and act on their own one day? Recently in US, a robot lawyer argued a traffic violation case and won it. Is it just the beginning of a new kind of a revolution? Just 3 days ago, I was asked a very interesting question on the disability law. Someone has gone to the High Court, some person with disability who is visually handicapped, and he said, well, as per the Disability Act, which as you know, earlier provided for 3% reservation and now provides 5% reservation. I must be given this reservation and he is visually challenged. And the judges and the lawyers were asking me, since Nalsar has a big, huge international center for disability studies and this central law which was passed in 2016, 15-16, was also drafted by us for the government of India, that how will he operate as a judge? Now here is a full-fledged, intelligent human being who will first take a written examination, and after qualifying the written examination will undergo interview at the Public Service Commission, and then he will be appointed as a judge. So the query which judges were asking me was this, that maybe he can recognize the voice of the lawyers who are arguing on the opposite sides and understand the argument. And maybe since he knows law, he will be able to dictate the judgment. You know, all judges dictate judgments. They don't write in their hand and they don't type. Of course, now we have a problem of people who know shorthand. And that's why a number of judgments have so many, spelling mistakes and other issues of grammar. But the trend is, since you have to dictate some 40, 50 judgments a day, that you will dictate and then somebody will put it up to you and you will read what order you dictated, make corrections, and then you will sign. So what these judges were asking me, that in case of this visually challenged person, who is a human being, so he is not a robot, by the way, he has to depend on somebody. So say if he is my steno, I dictate it to him, whatever he gives me, I make him read. So he also reads something and whatever written is different, ultimately I will be signing. Or I have to take the assistance of somebody else, that my steno types and then the final order is read to me by a third person and then I sign. But if this person and the third person, they join hands, then there will be situations of judges signing orders which he did not intend to do. So far the case has not really progressed well, but one day this situation is going to come. In United States, there have been now some efforts to replace judges by machines, and they say they can give judgments because in most cases you don't have a really contentious issue which require application of human mind. You can have some sets of facts and you can have some sets of laws, and it is application of laws to those facts. But then the consensus is that even application of law to facts will require a human mind. And that's why, a judge should be able to see and a judge should be able to hear well and apply his mind, and maybe the artificial intelligence or robots may not work as judge because ultimately you need a human mind to apply facts to law. I extend a very warm welcome to eminent panel members, participants from industry and our own students to this thought-provoking yet real scenario of change. Let me take this opportunity to introduce Nalsar University of Law. As you know that we are a creation of an act of the legislature. All national law universities like this, they will have the Chief Justice of the High Court as the ex-officio Chancellor. They will have the Chief Justice of India as the ex-officio visitor. And therefore, we are not directly under government, even though we are government funded, we are under the judicial branch of the government, which many feel and want to be independent, but is not really independent, as recent developments you can see. And always governments try to appoint judges of their own choice. So in one of my articles, I said that, well, Supreme Court has said that CBI is a cage parrot. So I said it should be because it is under the Ministry of Home. But what about judges themselves? Are they also cage parents? And some of the judgments which at times you read, you feel like that the judges, and same thing is happening in Israel, where Israeli government is trying to control judges, but their judges have demonstrated a lot of independence. Indian judges have also at times stood firm on their ground. So we have that way more autonomy than other educational institutions. We are not directly under the politicians, we are under judges with whom we can argue on law, and they are far more reasonable also. So Nalsar as a law school, as you know, this is a unique concept which India has experimented and given to the higher education. In no country in the world you will have a full-fledged law university. It is only in India that we have now as many as 18 full-fledged law universities. Now most of these universities are doing law and they have really excelled. In fact, They have transformed legal education and the prestige which law as a course should have, or it had. You know, our freedom movement was led by lawyers. In fact, freedom movements of most countries in the world were led by lawyers. Though I feel that India has thrown up the best kind of leaders. Our freedom movement has thrown up best kind of leaders. Of course, they are no more mentioned as sons or daughters of Gujarat, but that's okay. Now, the point I am trying to draw home that somewhere we lost direction in legal education, and in the dowry market in 70s and early 80s, if you are having a law degree, you have to pay 2 lakh of rupees. So national law schools have changed that scenario. When you had an economic slowdown and IITs and IIMs were finding it difficult to place people, all our people in the 4th year itself were placed. They many a times write to companies that if you are paying less than 18 lakhs, please don't come to our campuses. I try to counsel them that this is arrogance, don't do it. Because the whole scenario is when the company is winding up, still you need lawyers. So we make money even when there is a recession. So, unlike other law universities, which are doing only law, we decided to experiment with other courses, and therefore we emphasize humanities, we also emphasize management. Initially we started because we wanted to give country court managers, but somewhere the government lost the direction. So in last Finance Commission, there was a huge allocation for court managers. Then there was some kind of rethinking. Again, now they have changed the name, and they are saying we need court administrators, and judges will not be able to manage the courts. When I started this course, King Suk Nak, who is recently retired from Times of India, he wrote a small piece that, well, Professor Mustafa is going to manage judges. Now, court management is not to manage judges. There are other ways to do it. Court management is acknowledgement of the fact that judicial work requires a lot of management and judges are ignorant of management. We need MBAs to manage case flow. We need MBAs to manage courts. Judges should adjudicate. Their job is adjudication. Their job is not management of the judicial organ of the state. So finally, government has accepted now, and in the current budget also, there is a emphasis, if you look at the judicial allocation, on the court administrators, what they are calling. They are not calling anymore court managers. We at NALSAR believe that knowledge is at the intersection of disciplines. And that's why we don't believe in watertight compartments. So we do a lot of humanities, law-related courses, management law-related courses. We have demolished the barriers. So MBA students at NALSAR can take up courses of LLB. LLB students can take courses of LLM. LLB first-year students may be sitting with LLB fourth-year student, and this was a novel experiment. And with that novel experiment, we got the highest rank in the NAC accreditation, and thereafter we decided not to participate in any popular magazine type India Today Outlook ranking. So we no more participate in any ranking. We are convinced on the basis of some very hard evidence that we have left behind all other law schools. So we need not compete with anymore with any other law school. Now with this outlook and objective, we had set up Center of Management Studies at NALSAR, because we feel that no business is possible without substantial understanding of laws of the country. And that's why corporate governance is important, business regulations are important. So the course has some special focus that if you really want to do business, you can't be ignoring law. In any case, the dictum in law is ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorance of law is no defense, and business people should know law. Now, human capital, which has been playing the role of the spinal cord or backbone for an organization, has seen a drastic change in the politics, in the policies, practices, and techniques implemented in the organization. This change has been primarily caused by two key components. One, integration of technology into HR practices, and two, transition in the skills possessed by personnel of an organization. As the next generation workforce, we feel it is highly important to understand these transformations in HR and be prepared for further transitional changes in order to excel at workplaces. In our readings and understandings, the utilization of artificial intelligence will surely make life even more convenient for humankind in the years to come and even force humans to evolve their skill sets. It will perhaps never be possible for such machines to completely replace the human resource. Humankind, the creator of the machines, will always be in charge of directing, operating, and controlling the use of this technology. The human interaction and human input will never be made obsolete because of such machines. A blend of human and computer workforce is only going to make all the processes more efficient and accurate in a given workplace for better outcomes. But history bears evidence of several pivots in our time here on earth that have changed perceptions and altered realities. I once again welcome you all to this conclave and request you to discuss possibilities as well as probabilities of this interface between technology and us. I feel both are important and therefore both will stay together. When I was a student, we used to be asked to write an essay, science is a good servant, bad master. Similarly, technology can be a good servant, bad master. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving us, as usual, questions to think about while we move on in life. Now, I request very own Professor Vidyadhar Reddy, Sir, Director CMS, to share his thoughts on today's topic of discussion. Sir's experience of years has been inspiring. He has served as Chairman and Dean at Faculty of Management of Osmania University. He has published about 56 research papers in national and international journals. He has also actively associated with UGC, NAC, and NBA.
Thank you. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Nalsar University, Professor Faizan Mustafaji, and Chief Guest of this function, Sri Imanshu Tambe, MD, Accenture, Professor Mishraji, and other leaders from industry, students, and all other participants. Very good morning to all of you. Sir, Nalsar as an experiment, as a university which is doing extraordinary well in this legal education. And our leader, CEO, Professor Faizan Mustafaji, he has, with his open mind, he has come out with an academic innovation, first of its kind among all law schools in India. He came out with management education, CMS, with the interface with the legal education. It's a startup, like Nalsar has got a partnership with the T-Hub, along with the ISB and IIIT. And this has been doing well. Of course, we have to go a long way to prove ourselves that we are also equal with Nalsar. Since it being a child in this management in this Hyderabad market, we have restricted to very small number of size of the batch for about 40 students with an open system, unlike other B schools that are existing in Hyderabad. We have got an excellent faculty, young and dynamic, well qualified, and competent faculty. I've been using very carefully about these words because I've been exposed to not less than about 800 to 900 B schools, engineering colleges across India. As an expert member of UGC, NAC, NBA, AICTE. Therefore, every word I use here is very, very carefully loaded, meaningfully. And my faculty, though they are very small in number, not small, they are about 10 members for a 40 batch of students, highly qualified with rich qualifications, research, published in global journals, because research is the most important, as you all well. Publications in the international journals, refereed journals, ABDC journals, Scopus journals, my faculty have got. So we have been trying to impart very good education, very good training to our students. But I can't boast like any other B school that we are taking the best cream of the India. We are not taking the worst of India, cream of the India. We are taking the moderate quality of the students. And we are trying to train them, transform them into good citizens, good prospective managers of this country. And this particular center enjoys absolute freedom to the academics. A teacher can have his own syllabi, his own subject, he can design his own subject, he can have his own syllabus, he can have his own pedagogy. And our teachers use a lot of pedagogy, different pedagogy methods, simulation, business games, case method, and so on and so forth. The assessment and evaluation system also totally autonomous. They've got the total complete freedom, unlike other regular universities like Central and State. So thus we enjoy, our students enjoy a lot of academic entrepreneurship and innovation and also autonomy. So as rightly said, this is the platform which is taken up by our students, Avabodha. This is the third in town. And they have been calling it as a HR conclave. And this first session is scheduled the role of artificial intelligence and digitization, which is impacting the human resource management. As a practicing leaders of industry, you are better known and we are at the receiving end about these things. But however, I am reminded by a small case how important the artificial intelligence is. During late 80s and early 90s, when I was at IIM Ahmedabad, I was told by a case. During those times, I don't know, IIT Kanpur was known for computer science department. And a student with IIT Kanpur computer science qualification and IIM Ahmedabad qualification. During those days, only 3 sections used to be there. And all the students used to feel that what a deadly combination it is. And a student who topped both the schools, IIT Kanpur and IIM Ahmedabad, was always seeking for a very good prominent placement in the top of the MNCs. Of course, most of the MNCs, I don't know during those days, but one of the MNCs was also using artificial intelligence in their selection process. And one of the global corporation has selected a candidate with this qualification of IIT, computer science graduate from IIT Kanpur and a management qualification from IIM Ahmedabad, 2 top schools. For 3 rounds, he was successful and he was proved very good. And final round was there. Then he could come across a human being in the final round. Until that time, he did not see anybody. Anybody. Artificial intelligence is machine learning, all you know with. And it does the job based on the inputs given by the company, organization, and etc. The fourth round was, he was called to USA. The senior global president was looking after the final round, and he was almost selected. He was given impression that he was almost through. He felt very happy. And in the final round, he could see the man, human being. And only one. There was nothing as such, any interview. Okay. Everything was over. He was about to be given the letter of appointment. He was asked to wait for half an hour. Finally, he was told that probably that person is out of station, so requested him to collect the letter later. The MNC, which was really conducting the selection process with the help of machine learning, artificial intelligence, so on and so forth, was keenly observing, analyzing the trends and the behavioral aspects of that incumbent. Because they think in terms of whether this new recruitee, the incumbent, is going to fit into their organizational culture or not. And finally, he could not get the selection letter. Because his behavioral aspect, the cognitive aspects of his behavior, which reflects his attitude, when he was a single individual operating in a big hall like that before a senior president of that company, everything was recorded by so many today's. So finally could not get it. Why? What was the reason? See, there are two types of error, as you all well, type 1 and type 2. The role of artificial intelligence that is not permitted to go beyond 3 levels, the final level. Why? Because there has to be, again, a human being to assess and estimate the qualities of anybody. And there it was decided. Because otherwise, the machine learning would have committed type 2 error. It is supposed to reject the hypothesis when it is false, but it is not done. It has accepted. That would have, people have felt that would have spoiled the very basic culture of that MNC. Therefore, they decided not to take such a brilliant academician with a razor-sharp intelligence who proved to be. So therefore, I'm sorry, today a lot is there to discuss and debate all these things, the role of IT and artificial intelligence today. So I welcome all of you, sir, for this session. And I request my students, all of them, to have their interaction, exposure with the industry leaders with this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sirs. Personally, I would have preferred that this inaugural session would continue and the audience listen into the words of wisdom from you. But as in all good things, even this has to come to close. I thank you again for your presence. Panelists and friends, including our friends from industry, for us, the good things will continue. After a very short tea break, I, Hashmita Mundra, am going to meet and speak to this galaxy of people gathered here, and sincerely hope that their 15 minutes will mean much more than simple tea, will become chai pe charcha. Yeah, and the tea is being served at Thinking Statue.